Hi, this is Peter Friedrich, and today we are speaking with Yunus Yaqub about the Kashmir issue. So, Yunus, I want to thank you for offering your time to express your opinions and your perspectives about what's happening in Kashmir right now. And you're from Kashmir.
Hello, yeah, I'm Yunus Yaqub. I'm from Kashmir, and I'm currently based in New Delhi.
Okay.
And I'm from Kulgam district in Jammu and Kashmir, which it's considered one of the hotspots of radicalization right now. And I am currently I'm pursuing masters in New Delhi, and I'm here for last 2 years.
Okay. So, what is it, Yunus, that has prompted you after all these decades of conflict, where this is not a new issue having conflict in Jammu and Kashmir, but today, what's prompted you to feel like you're compelled to speak out?
Uh, Today, everybody knows, everybody is talking about Kashmir, but except the Kashmiris. Nobody's talking. No, the scrapping of Article 370 of from the Constitution of India by the Indian democracy, and in fact the largest democracy in the world, and it's without the consultation of the people of Kashmir, which is the only people which are being directly affected by the law. So it's by default that at this period of time, every Kashmiri from whichever part he is, he's comes up and speaks for this. We face an existential threat when we face an identity crisis here in Delhi, outside India too, and we don't know what's happening there in the valley. There's no voice coming from the valley. There's no media house that's there in the valley and speaking truth about the valley, and that's really frustrating for us living outside. And as of now, we don't really know about our families, about everyone there in the valley.
So, as you say, you don't know what's happening right now in the valley. Why is that you don't know?
There has been a complete absolute communication blockade by the government of India, and it started 4 days before the actual thing came up. And even before that, there was complete anarchy there. People were running for their food, to gather food, because they felt that something bad's going to happen, because there was the moment of mobilization of troops and unprecedented level. And they feared that this time thing might come. And now, it was on 4th of August that uh, this process started. In fact, on the fifth morning, 5th of August in the morning, this process started, and we had a complete communication blackout. We don't know. We haven't spoken to our families from there. We
And
haven't spoken.
your family's in Kashmir right now?
Yeah, they're in the valley, and I've not spoken to them from last 10 days. We had one of the in fact on the second only occasion, that's Eid al Azha. We celebrated it yesterday, day before yesterday, and on that day we were not able to speak to our families, and that's something very frustrating for any individual.
How often do you usually speak with your family?
Nobody spoke to nobody spoke to our families. The last time
In a normal situation, without the communications blackout, how often?
yeah, yeah, I mean, my mother used to call me like 5 times a day. And whenever I had breakfast or dinner, or even before going to the college, she used to call me. And I used to feel like she's always looking there. She's look at my back. But from last 10 days, it has been in an absolute isolation. I mean, uh, it's really painful not to hear from your mother. And this, I don't think any human being, wherever he is, is devoid of this emotion, of the emotion of the belongingness of his family. And I think uh, it's high time. It's really painful for us that we are unable to talk to our family.
So going 10 days, not almost, but actually 10 days without hearing from
Yeah.
family, and you're used to speaking with your family, with your mother on a daily, if not multiple times a day basis. This must be personally catastrophic for you.
Yeah, I mean, the very existence, a sense of existence is at stake. We feel we have to muster the courage to come up and feel, okay, this is what we are going to do today. But at the same time, we question the essence of existence, because the things that you carry on, that you do, the career that you try to pursue is for your family. But if you're not being able to contact your family, if you're not being able to get through your family, the very existence is at stake, the very existence is questionable. And that's happening for us, that's happening with us. I failed to muster the courage to do the classes for almost 3 days. I couldn't muster that courage to go and reach to my friends here, because I was in absolute shock what's happening. And we couldn't even know what's the status there in the valley. Are our families in safe? We don't know as of now. There's no communication at all. We don't know, are they safe even? Because there has been the mobilization of troops, you don't know what's happening there in the valley. You just believe in some of the media houses that come out, but at the same time you don't know what's happening in your area specifically, and that's really concerning.
So why do you think that this is happening, Eunice? Of course, the government has given these reasons for the scrapping of Articles 370 and 35A as being development and this sort of thing. But do you think that that's the true motive, or is there another motive? Why do you think it's happening?
I think it's ironical to say that this is being the scrapping of Article 370 is being done for development, economic prosperity. If it had been for development, economic prosperity, I think it should have been done by the Kashmiris, the people which are being directly affected by it. There's no consultation, there's no process that's involving that where the Kashmiris are being involved. The mainstream politics, who always acted as a bridge between India and Kashmir, they are being jailed. And they were, in fact, they never represented Kashmir in New Delhi. They were the ones who represented New Delhi in Kashmir, and their existence is at stake. The idea of their politics has gone down. They don't know. They have no space. Their space is squeezed, entirely squeezed, and that's something we fail to comprehend what lies ahead. And and in fact, the center government, the way they have been doing about the things, the way they have been using the doctrines in Kashmir from the last 5 years, we see that high-handedness of the government, from center government, in the last 5 years, and we see its reaction on the ground. We see alienation among the masses. We see 14-year-olds, 18-year-olds coming up and going to the militant groups. We see that upsurge in militancy from the last 5 years, which was on an all it was very low, in fact, uh, prior to, I think, 2013-14. And now it's on the upsurge, and I fear there will be the upsurge now.
So, as you mentioned, even these mainstream politicians who you said they represented New Delhi and Kashmir rather than Kashmir and New Delhi, these are people like Mehbooba Mufti, Omar Abdullah, who they're former chief ministers of Jammu and Kashmir. They're absolutely mainstream politicians. They were even aligned with and in coalition governments with the BJP. Even they've been jailed, and there's no news about on what charges they're being held. In today, we also saw Shah Faisal. He was arrested. These mainstream politicians are being put behind bars. In this environment where not just people that are speaking out with dissent against Delhi, but people that were actually representing Delhi's interests in Kashmir are being jailed. In this environment, how do you feel about the government's actions in Kashmir?
I think right now there's absolute high-handedness from the government in Kashmir, from the center government. The way a state which had a special status prior on 4th of August was actually demoted to a UN territory. That in itself talks about how the level of high-handedness and the top-down approach, the militaristic approach by the center government.
And if I can
And
interject, it's not just that Articles 370, 35A were scrapped and that Jammu and Kashmir lost its special status, but it's also that it was actually stripped of statehood.
yeah, that's actually it. It's not only about Article 370. We were actually demoted to a union territory. We are and that's a problem. That's a problem not only for us, for every future generation. And we have that existential and identity threat. We feel that thing. We have always been talking about our special status, the accession of India, the idea of our instrument of accession. That constitutional scheme has been trampled, and this talks about how much the high-handedness of the government is. And that, and the alienation there in the valley. We cannot talk, we cannot I, being the Kashmiri, cannot simply comprehend the emotions that will be there in the valley. Yes, there are restrictions there in the valley. There is a more the communication blackout, but at the same time I can feel that emotion there in the valley. They are among the youngsters who feel that they are being betrayed. It's a betrayal of the promises that were kept, that were done by the center of 70 years before. And that betrayal is at the highest level now. And it's only to maybe to pacify the RSS ideology. It's just that jingoistic nationalism that's prevailing in the nation, that's prevailing here. That they wanted to change the only Muslim majority state in the country, and they wanted democratic change there. And that's the core issue. That's the main reason that the whole idea and the whole demotion of Jammu and Kashmir is being done.
Yes, and Yunus, I've heard several other people, other Kashmiris that I've spoken with, make reference to the idea that they think that this RSS ideology or Hindutva ideology is a motivating factor behind what's happening in Kashmir right now.
Yeah, definitely. We see the way they are being changed. They are being handling the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The way they are promoting the interests of the Jammu, and I fail to understand the way how they are going about in Jammu, the region, the province where Hindu majority lies. But at the same time, there is this clear motive of changing the demography of Kashmir, to transform this Muslim majority state and dilute its demography, and have a non-Muslim chief minister at the end. In fact, we will not have a chief minister of the stature that we had as a state. And it's really frustrating. It's really painful for every Kashmiri there, within the valley and outside the valley.
So you're from Kashmir, Yunus. You grew up there. What was it like growing up in Kashmir? What was your experience walking down the street as a kid growing up in Kashmir?
As a kid, I have been a kid in 1990s. I mean, when I grew up, the militancy was at its peak, and I cannot recall all the things at that time, but still feel there are memories of some of the forces coming in our houses. There are those memories of some encounters happening in the valley. There are memories of mass killings done in the valley. And you see, I mean, even when I grew as a teenager there in the valley, I saw the upsurge, the rise of the protests, the non-violent protests which they were, and the high-handedness there by the government using pellet guns and blinding thousands of youngsters there in the valley. The use of, I mean, I have seen my friends, I have seen my colleagues being killed. I have seen I mean, I've seen sisters being raped, and there's absolute no immunity. There's absolute immunity to the armed forces, and this has already this was being done in the valley. and we have always been and we always protested this. And but at the same time now, our existence now, I mean, it's at stake. It's definitely at stake. We fail to understand what lies ahead, and we fear that the alienation will definitely grow. It's not going to come down. It's not the high-handedness, the militaristic approach by the government is going to fail, and that we know that because we have been resisting this from last 30 years. And I don't think there might be an end to this, because I this is absolute anarchy. This is absolute. Uh, I mean, it's also ironical and paradoxical from the point of view of being the largest democracy. I mean, you call yourself the largest democracy, and at the same time you don't hear from the people which are being affected. And it's really puzzling to get that thing from this kind of a parliament, from this kind of democracy. And in fact uh, it's in fact something that every Kashmiri fails to understand. I mean, the mainstream politicians, who have always stood for Kashmir, who have always stood for the idea of India there in the valley, they are being jailed, they are being betrayed. It's them who are being betrayed the most. And the separatists never believed in Indian constitution. And uh, they too will the ali- feel the level of alienation there among the masses. And it's definitely going to go the wrong way. I fear that thing, and every Kashmiri fears that thing, because at the end, it's your family there in the valley. It's your loved ones there in the valley. You want the peace to prevail, but unfortunately, the way the government is going by the things, I don't think and the government craves for that peace. It's a land grab. It's now an occupation there in the valley, and that's it.
So
That's the whole truth.
let me ask you, you just said it's a land grab. I've spoken with a couple of other Kashmiris, and one of the ways that they phrased it is that they believe that the government wants the land of Kashmir without Kashmiris. How do you feel about that sentiment?
That's really true. There has been the by scrapping Article 370, which bridged Kashmir to India. The idea that the constitutional scheme that we were sort of aligned to India, and knowing that the only thing that Kashmir had the proximity to Pakistan, and had a Muslim majority, and even then, if it had acceded to India, it was in itself a good thing. But that idea has been betrayed. That idea has been trampled. And now, with the scrapping of Article 370, the only thing that bridged India and Kashmir, now it's an occupational force. It's something like an invasion. I mean, now there are news that there will be unfurling of the national flag at Lal Chowk, the clock tower in the center of the city, Srinagar, by some of the politicians in India. I mean, it's an absolute land grab. You see, it's a colonialism of 21st century. It's absolute high-handedness. It's absolute invasion by the Indian forces in the valley. There's absolute clampdown of every sort. Nobody there in the valley is talking. Nobody, no media houses, in fact, speaking the truth. The media houses there in the valley too have stopped publishing their newspapers from last 5 6 days. And this speaks volumes about the way things are going there in the valley. The things definitely are not going well. Things definitely are not well, and things definitely will not go well there in the valley.
So, as you said, Eunice, the media houses, the newspapers that are local in Kashmir, they've stopped publishing for the past several days. You've also made reference to these peaceful protests that over the past many years that have been repeatedly clamped down on and busted up. This is freedom of assembly. This is the right to dissent. This is freedom of speech and the freedom to publish. These various freedoms seem to be under threat, and in fact, not just under threat, but flatly denied. So, in context of that, in context of all of these other things happening, this ongoing communications blackout, the Kashmir blockade that's still underway, the jailing of these mainstream politicians, politicians who even themselves were actually aligned with the interests of Delhi and, in fact, even the interests of the current ruling party, the BJP. In light of all of that, how do you feel about the future of Kashmir? What do you think the future may look like for Kashmir a week from now, or a year, or 10 years from now?
I think the best way to comprehend this thing is to understand that it's not only about Article 370, it's not only about Article 335A, it's not only about the fundamental rights that are being trampled, that the Constitution of India highly values, that are being regularly trampled and that have been regularly being trampled for the last 30 years in the valley. It's also about the lives of the valley. It's about the right to self-determination that has been sorry that has been accorded by the United Nations Resolution 1948, and that right of self-determination is the right of every Kashmiri, and that has to be respected at any cost. I mean, yes, this definitely is not going to be peaceful. I fear that there will be that upsurge in militancy in the valley. There will be the return of adventurism that's being done by the Pakistan. That's being done by Pakistan, and I fear that thing. I fear that this resistance is going to continue, and this resistance is not only going to continue but also rise. It's not only the ones who were against India or who spoke for Kashmir's plebiscite before 5th of August, but it's also about the mainstream politicians who feel betrayed, and it's also about them. They will come up and rise up to the occasion and speak about Kashmir and speak about the issues in the valley. I don't think there's a space left for mainstream politics in the valley. I don't feel that there's that space for mainstream or the idea of India there in the valley. I fear that thing, and this thing is going to continue. This thing will rise, and the youngsters, the young masses of the valley are already feeling betrayed. Their future looks bleak.
So, Yunus, in conclusion, then, as people all over the world, and especially people in India, are discussing this Kashmir issue and the quote unquote solution to the Kashmir issue, do you believe that Kashmiris and the voices of Kashmiris have been given prominence in this dialogue?
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. Because you see, everybody is talking about Kashmir. Everybody has been talking about Kashmir from the last 3 decades now. There has been. I mean, it's not a new phenomena that the human rights are violated there in the valley. There have been reports by United Nations Human Rights Commission from last 3 years. There have been reports by Amnesty International. There have been reports by every civil society talking about genocide there in the valley, talking about the mass graves, the custodial deaths, talking about the killings, the mass killings, talking about the pellet victims. Uh, we have seen thousands of young masses going blind, and we have not seen anything from international media. Yes, partial empathy is shown by some media houses. There have been partial. Sorry, it was a phone call. There have been those partial sentiments that are being assigned to Kashmir, but at the same time, there has it's unfortunately something that we wanted the international community to come up and at least feel the kind it's something it's something very very unfortunate to see the way even Russia has spoken of as it's the bilateral issue. It's an internal issue of Kashmir, but I think the world has to witness that it's an issue, it's a dispute, and it has to be resolved amicably to prevent any sort of escalation, because Kashmir lies at a strategic position between three nuclear powers, and that the world has to understand.
Well, Yunus Yaqub, I deeply appreciate your time and the freely expressed opinions that you've offered, and you opening up with your feelings about this issue. I stand with you in hoping for a peaceful future, bright future for Kashmir. We will see what time brings. Is there anything else that you have on your heart, on your mind that you wanted to say?
No, I'm thankful for you to give me the opportunity to speak about the issue. I mean, I just hope that my family in the valley is fine. I just hope everybody in the valley is fine. I just hope that peace prevails. I and at the same time, I hope that democracy wins. The real democracy wins, not any idea of or anything else. I think I really appreciate your time, your efforts to come and reach to us, so to let us speak, and it's really appreciable. Thank you.
Eunice, I hope that you get back in touch with your family very, very soon. And I hope for the immediate end to this curfew and to this Kashmir blockade.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also hope. Thank you.